Welcome back to another episode on the Aaron Doughty podcast. My name's Aaron Doughty. Today, I'm not just going to only be showing you the positives of raising your vibration. I'm going to also show you the cons. And this is going to really help you decide. You're going to be like, hey, do I want to raise my vibration? You're going to look at this different list of things, and you're going to say, maybe I just want to stay where I'm at. Maybe I just want to stay at the level of consciousness that I'm at. Or maybe I want to push through or let go of what doesn't serve so I can raise my vibration. Remember, the key to raising your vibration is not tacking on a new level, getting to a new ring. It is letting go of what no longer serves you. When you let go, you then naturally raise up. And that's the power of this. I've been reading a book recently. It's called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. And he's also wrote the book Power versus Force, which has with it that scale of consciousness I share in a lot of videos. And letting go is really so powerful. I was talking to my dad last night about this because he called me. He's going through something with some other people in the family where he's just learning the different dynamics of how to express himself or why certain people act a certain way. And I was like, dude, you know what you should do? I said, dude, hey, I was like, you should get the book, even though letting go is probably a little bit outside my dad's normal realm of reading. I was explaining to him some of the principles because I can see how certain energy patterns may be playing out in his own life, and then also how that may have affected me. Like, for example, let me share with you this energy pattern, and we'll get into the cons and the pros in a minute. But I also have a very funny story for you guys. I think it's funny anyways. So, you remember when we talked about ancestral stuff, like where we sometimes take on the patterns that our parents went through because subconsciously we absorbed those growing up. Well, the thing that my dad's working with is he will sometimes go away for work. And when he goes away for work, he's a fire investigator. He recently retired, but now he has another job still being a fire investigator. And he's like he goes in after insurance companies and stuff and determines like the different causes of fires. And it's a little bit different now than it used to be. There was a lot of stress on the department because of the whole stuff that was going on in the world. And they gave him they said, hey, if you do this, you get a little bonus of money to retire like 3 years early. So he did it. And now he has another job and he's doing something very similar, but it's even better because before he was working 24-hour shifts. So he'd work 24 hours on, 24 hours off. And that'd be like that for 9 days in a row. And then he'd get 6 days off in a row. That was his schedule before. Now, which means sometimes he wouldn't sleep as much at night because he'd be working all night. Imagine how much reaction state you'd be in. Anytime an alarm goes off, you got to get up and go, And he's at the station. That's what he was doing. Well, now he gets to work like 7 to 3, 8 to 4. He gets to be home every day, but there's still times he goes away for trips. And these trips, he goes to conventions, he learns things. He might go and have to look at a fire in different cities and stuff like that. And the pattern that my dad was working through, or the emotion that my dad was working through, is sometimes what happens is when he leaves, certain people in the family will kind of not rub it in, but kind of use that against him. Like, you're leaving. You why are you leaving? Like, I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in the house. Like, you shouldn't be leaving, even though it's for work. And he deals with a lot of stuff, and like that people give him for that. And the subconscious feeling that I had about that is after reading the book Letting Go, this is the energy dynamics of it. If somebody feels guilty for leaving, and I know that my dad used to work longer hour shifts, my guess is that from the childhood of my brother and I, from 7 to 16 years old for me, when my ex-stepmom was in the picture, my guess is that part of him may have felt like if he was home more, maybe he would have mitigated some of that. Everything happens for a reason, but my guess is that maybe that would be part of it. So my guess is that deep down, he has this subconscious fear or guilt around leaving for a job, specifically for work. And when he does that, he's putting out this energy of feeling that guilt, and then other people pick up on it and respond to him in that way. Maybe they get angry about him leaving, or they tell him, or they rub it in his face, or they make him feel guilty about it even more, and they kind of exploit it. And from reading that of the book Letting Go, what I've learned is that everything is a reflection of our inner reality. And I've known this from other books, but it really talks about different emotions. And an emotion like guilt, if you're putting out and you're feeling guilty for leaving the house, guilty for going to your job or even a different city, and the other people will pick up on that feeling and they will, in a way, exploit that, or they will show that, or they will express that and reflect that back. So the thing that I encourage my dad to do is to go within. And it was funny. I was trying to say to him, this is what I've learned about coaching and learned about talking to people. If I tell somebody what I think, a lot of times it doesn't have as much power as if I ask questions to get them to that awareness themselves. So I was like, Dad, I don't want to tell you this. I want you to come up with this on your own. Otherwise, it's not as powerful. But I didn't know how else to tell him. So I eventually just kind of told him, and he was like, hey, just read this book. But part of the reason I think that gets exploited back is because he feels that subconscious guilt. Now, the reason I say that too is because of the subconscious mind, or the ancestral stuff that I talked about, how ancestrally we absorb patterns from our parents. I also, with many ex-girlfriends, have felt guilty going to the gym. I remember I had a 9-to-5 job, and when I did, on my 2 days off a week, I'd be doing a lot of errands. That's the thing that sucks about 9-to-5 jobs. I mean, like having a 9-to-5 job, working 40 hours a week, and then having to run errands on your 2 days off. You didn't really have time for anything. You're just constantly grinding. So what I would do is, as I would, on my 2 days off, I'd go work out. And I'd work out on my days I work too. But then a lot of times I'd feel guilty for working out. And guess what? Girlfriends I was with at the time would then, in a way, be like, either subconsciously or consciously be like, you're not spending time with me, or you're just so rigid, or something like that. And that was my own insecurity. I also felt like I had too much rigidity, and I shouldn't accept that about myself. But now I've learned how to really not feel guilty for it, to do what I want to do, which also has to do with leading in the masculine frame, and also just not feeling guilty about me doing what I want and me having a certain willpower, And okay, so that's part of it. Now, you guys want the funny story? Okay, listen to this. Okay, you guys know how I have the narcissistic ex-stepmom? Well, she's no longer in my life, but she's still my sister's real mom and my dad's ex-wife. And still, she finds ways of manipulating. This is the thing that really sucks, by the way, about having a narcissist like that in the life. Because what she did to my brother and I, for example, when we were younger, is she brainwashed us to not want to talk to our real mom. My real mom is amazing, by the way. I know sometimes you guys hear me talk about my ex-stepmom, and sometimes she may overshadow my real mom, because when I talk about my ex-stepmom, it's in a very negative light. But it's because that led me to a spiritual awakening, that pain and pressure. But I have an amazing real mom that is such a powerful person in my own life. Really, somebody that's always supported me in a very powerful way, emotionally. Even like when I went through my awakening, I was living with my mom, and she's someone I appreciate very much, but I feel like I don't really express it on content as much because I always talk about the pain and the bad, But I have an amazing real mom who my brother and I were brainwashed against going to her house when we were younger. So when my dad met my ex-stepmom when I was 7 years old, we would go to our real mom's house for like a couple days, and then when we come back, we would get in a lot of trouble. Immediately, we get in trouble. And then eventually, after like a year or two, she started brainwashing us to believe things about her mom that weren't true. And then it got to the point to where she even encouraged us to write these mean letters to our real mom. And it's funny, my real mom went to a psychic or like clairvoyant person back in the 90s or something, back in the 90s, and basically the psychic said, you got to let them go for now because it's making it worse with the ex-stepmom. Like she has them brainwashed right now, but eventually they'll come back around. And that always kind of planted a seed in my mom's mind, because it was very hard for her to allow that to happen in a way, but she didn't really have a choice because of the brainwashing. And it was like our choice, but we were brainwashed from our ex-stepmom, with pain and pleasure, almost like military tactics. But anyways, that was the energy dynamic. 16 came around. My dad divorced my ex-stepmom. We developed an amazing relationship with my real mom. Some of my best memories are hanging out with my mom in the garage, and I had friends come over. We would smoke hookah, and we'd chill, and my mom was always able to chill with the friends and stuff. She's super cool, supporting. Even when I went through my awakening, she was the one that was really there for me, because when I came out of that awakening in 2012, I lived with her and my brothers and sisters, and on my mom's side. So I have a brother and sister on my mom's side, and I have two sisters on my dad's side. And then I have a biological same mom, same dad brother. Yeah, so going through that, she was there for me. She was also going through her own spiritual awakening at the time, and some of my best memories are with her. So I just kind of want to express that, because I also wanted to shine light on my mom, who I love very much, and kind of open up and share that with you guys. But anyways, so that was how my ex-stepmom would brainwash my brother and I towards not wanting to really have be able to talk to my real mom until after the divorce. Then we reconnected. Now, the reason I share that with you is because there is this pattern that exists in my dad's side of the family, where it's my sisters that have been, in a way, primed and brainwashed, where every single holiday, I don't know if they're aware of this, but every single holiday, shit goes down, and it's some dramatic thing. I'm not kidding you. I remember going to Christmas last year, and there's always my two sisters, there's always one that is mad at the other one, and it's dramatic, and there's this weird energy, always, no matter what. And they've been primed from their mom. Their mom has literally brainwashed them to every holiday, every time we're celebrating something shitty goes down. And it's crazy. It's literally like clockwork. It's like every year, and it's like I'm learning to let go of, like, knowing that there's going to be some crazy shit, like someone's going to be mad at somebody else, So my dad calls me yesterday. This is funny. So my ex-stepmom told my sisters, who they're getting older now. They're like, 18, 19 years old, 17, 18. And she told them that, and this isn't like brainwashing necessarily, but influenced them. They called my dad and they go, "Dad, what is today?" And Dad goes, "It's Halloween. Happy Halloween. Are we going to get candy later? What are we doing? Like, happy Halloween." And my dad's like a super nice guy. So this is what happened. And they're like, "Okay, And they're like, "What else is it?" And my dad's like, it's fucking Halloween, like, happy Halloween. What are you guys talking about?" And then one of my sisters goes, "It was the night." It's so funny to even say. "It was the night you conceived me." Okay, so the ex-stepmom, which is their real mom, has influenced them to be mad at my dad because he did not call them on the day they were conceived to tell them, like, happy conception day. I don't even know. So that makes sense, though, because one of my sisters was born in August. So I guess they did it on a Halloween. She was born in August, right? But think about how weird that is, right? Like my dad is literally there, like, yeah. My dad always says, he's like, "I can't make this shit up. I can't make this shit up," because it sounds like something out of a sitcom or a movie. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be a funny movie or something? It's like somebody is just super, and then literally they're like mad at my dad for like a day or two. I don't know. It'll blow over like a day or two. But my dad's like having to deal with somebody, like 2 or 3 people being mad at him for not acknowledging happy conception day. Now, here's the weird thing. Their real mom talks to her daughters, which are like 17, even from the time they were like 12, 13 years old, and like talks about that kind of stuff, like having sex with, like, and just stuff about her own sex life, which is very interesting because they're young, especially when they were young daughters, when they were like 12, 13, 14, she was talking about stuff like that, about her boyfriends and sex and stuff like that. But even like sharing that, like, "Oh, this is when you were conceived." And then my dad not knowing that was like why someone would be mad. You know what I mean? Like, "Oh, I'm supposed to like," is that a conversation I'm supposed to have with my daughters? "I conceived of you on this day." I know some parents are willing to share that, But how would you even know unless, I mean, you must not, the thing is, you must have not been having a lot of sex if you know for sure that's what it is. That one time that year we did it, I was when we conceived of you. But anyways, that's just a funny little thing, but it all had to do, and so I told my dad, go read the book Letting Go, because there's a reason they feel like they can exploit that in you. I don't know what I would do, but if somebody told me that and they were mad at me for that, I don't know how I would react. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'd probably, like, my dad is like, I can't make this shit up. I don't know what the hell's going on. I would have to go inside myself and like really let go of some subconscious blocks or like some type of thing where I would like, it's almost like the boundaries haven't been set on what's okay and what's not okay. So they think it's okay to treat him like that. You see what I mean? So it's okay to have boundaries. I would express that that's not, it's also respect too. I think if they respected him more, they probably wouldn't have like get mad at him for something like that. Like, how can you get mad at your dad for not saying happy conception day? It's just a weird conversation. And then pout about it and be mad about it and ignore him and then go to the mom's house, the mom's house, and like be with them. See, that's the kind of manipulation that happens though. Anyways, I know we're 16 minutes in. I haven't even gotten to the real episode yet, but there was just a funny story that I want to share with you. But the root of it is in letting go. And when you let go, that's when you raise your vibration. When you let go of the outcome, let go of the subconscious beliefs, let go of the guilt, that's when you start to feel differently. So let's go ahead and get into this episode now. And the first thing, the pros and cons of awakening and raising your vibe. So I first raised my vibe in 2012. And when I did, so much of my life changed. Many of you know the story, but I was working that 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes. I knew I was feeling a lot of resistance for having ADHD, couldn't really focus. I was taking Adderall, which the side effects of Adderall, which is given for ADHD, is you can't eat very much, you can't sleep very much. After a couple months of taking that, or like a year of taking that, I was like, man, there's got to be something else. So I went online and looked up and found there was all this research that black and white showed that meditation is super powerful. So I started meditating. First 2 or 3 days, nothing really happened. I was observing my thoughts. And when like 3-4 days in, I learned how to not try to control my thoughts, but how to allow them to be there. And then I started to feel the spaciousness within me. And the way that I describe it is my vibration or my energy on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 feeling amazing, 1 feeling not good at all. I felt at about a 3 as my base point. If I smoked some weed, I was smoking a lot of weed at the time to counteract the side effects of Adderall. Because what are the side effects of weed? Well, of Adderall, you can't eat a lot, you can't sleep a lot. Of weed, side effects of it, you eat good, you sleep good. So I was taking Adderall during the day and smoking weed at night. If I felt a 3, I'd take some Adderall, it's about like a 4 or 5 maybe. Smoke some weed, 4 or 5. What happened is after I started to observe my thoughts and feel the spaciousness inside of me, I went to like a 7 or 8 out of 10. I literally began to feel high all the time. And it changed so much of my life. Within a month, I went on like a plant-based diet. And at the time, I lost a lot of weight. I completely let go of smoking weed and taking Adderall. I started talking about meditation. I started learning mantras. I started diving into how reality works. I let go of the beliefs that I realized I felt unworthy from my childhood, and I changed the meaning of it. I became aware that I believed I had ADHD, and therefore I needed Adderall. I had a belief that I needed weed. I had the belief that of these things that I could see was keeping me in a little box. So what I eventually did is I let go of those, and I started to feel more and more free. Now, when that happened, though, and I started to lose weight because I went vegan, I kind of went vegan, but not really. I went vegan, but I didn't realize that honey was part of not being vegan. So for like 2-3 years, I'll be vegan. I was like pouring honey all over my cereal, not knowing that that didn't really count. When I found out, I was like, no, I'm not this perfect person. I'm just kidding. That's a whole shadow thing of itself, by the way. Having label of I am vegan or I am this or I am that. And then there's like a lot of times like a spiritual ego that comes in with that. It's like I am better than significance. Anyways, that's a separate video. But when I went through that, I lost a lot of weight. So then people thought I was on drugs, even though I wasn't. I was off of everything, off of weed, off of Adderall. I started talking about meditation. I didn't want to party. I didn't drink. I stopped drinking alcohol. And from doing that, a lot of people thought I went crazy. A lot of people didn't understand me. And I felt alone. All right. So I felt amazing on the inside. I felt somewhat alone, but I was okay with it because I went from a 3 to 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 to a 7 or 8 out of 10. And I thought that high feeling was going to go away. It never really went away, just became the base point. So yes, it would still dip down a little bit. It would still dip up a little bit, but it was like way higher vibe. That's why I didn't need to smoke or drink anymore, because the smoking or drinking brought me to a 5. So if I would do it from a 7, I wouldn't feel as good. So I eventually quit smoking weed and drinking. Now, there's a couple. Now, the positives of this is I completely reevaluated my belief system. I had patterns in my life that were there. One of the patterns was I always had a woman in my life that was trying to control me because I had a subconscious belief that women are trying to control me. That stemmed from 7 to 16 years old, having the ex-stepmom in my life that was mentally, physically, and emotionally abusive. And because of that, my first girlfriend, after I got out of that, when my dad divorced my ex-stepmom, my first girlfriend was always trying to control me. She was very jealous. I dealt with that for like 3-4 years. And it's funny because I also had a pattern of being in relationships longer than I needed to be. Just like my dad did. My dad was in 7-year, 8-year relationship with my ex-stepmom, probably 5 years longer than it needed to be. After I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, I was working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. I got transferred to Salon Shoes, which is designer shoes, which is a better shoe department considering it is a commission sales-based job. And the manager of that department, she was completely like my ex-stepmom, like literally a spitting image personality-wise, manipulative. She couldn't, of course, physically abuse us, but she could. She would get mad, and it was like dealing with my ex-stepmom. Within 2 weeks in 2012 of learning meditation and starting to observe these thoughts and belief patterns, and I let that go and changed the meaning of my past, and really I forgave my ex-stepmom because I realized that what she was doing was from her own level of consciousness, and if I hold on to that energy, I'm going to attract more of that stuff. After I forgave her, within 2 weeks, that manager got fired. Never had to talk to her again, and I never really had to deal with that pattern again. It's trickled up here and there, but I know how to deal with it now. It's very different. It is very, very doesn't affect me. So, and after that pattern left, and my whole life really transformed from that moment going onwards. I still had a 9-to-5 job. Let me explain to you some of the, so when I was working that 9-to-5 job at Nordstrom's, I then became very ungrounded as I was raising my vibe. This happens a lot. You'll see this as a pattern in a lot of spiritual people. They become very ungrounded. They say, you know what? I'm going to start eating vegan. I'm going to start doing, it's like, okay, now they've got lighter food going into their body. Then they're going to start meditating all the time. And then they're going to do all these things that end up and eventually what I find for the extreme cases of this, which included me, is I became very ungrounded and very much resistant to 3D reality. I was like, I don't want to have a 9-to-5 job around low vibrational people. You see how the spiritual ego starts to come in here? And what happens is I don't want to have that job, and I just want to meditate. And literally one of the reasons I quit working at Nordstrom's, you guys want to hear this? How ironic, everything going on in the world right now. There's I believe, I still believe to this day that there's an ascension happening on the planet. We're ascending to a higher level of consciousness. You listening to this are on the leading edge because you're into this information now, and what you realize and know trickles out to other people in your life, even subconsciously. So you came here as a light worker. You came here to help people wake up. Even if it doesn't mean you have to make videos or anything, but I really believe that if you're into this information, then you are a part of the wave that is allowing us to filter through this reality. So in 2012, I became aware of ascension. I thought we were going to ascend into a higher level of consciousness physically. Now I think it's more energetically, and we're all doing this together. Whereas I thought some of us may go, some of us may not go, is really extreme. That's because of ungroundedness, right? So every Sunday there was this guided meditation, global guided meditation, and I would work on Sunday sometimes, and it would get in the way of these guided meditations. Here I am trying to help the planet ascend, and I got to go to work. What is more important, this 9-to-5 job or helping the planet ascend and me adding energy to the collective consciousness? Obviously, It was adding energy to collective consciousness. So what I would do is I would leave Nordstrom's, walk across the street to the Trump Hotel. Remember, this is back in 2012 or 2011. No, 2012. It's 2012. And there was I'd sit in grass and I would like allow the energy to come through so that I could help the planet ascend. And then one time I had a customer and it got in the way of that. And I eventually said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I quit. Didn't even put in my 2 weeks. I just quit. Because after that one manager got fired, a new manager came in. And this time it was a guy. And this guy was, he was a gay guy that had a crush on me. And what happened is I am not gay. And what I did is I turned him down when he would like say these things to me and stuff like that. And after a while, he started treating me different, giving me bad schedules, all this BS. So eventually what I did is I said, okay, I had like this bitterness. So I was like, I quit, not coming in tomorrow, never had to see that guy again. He later got fired, by the way. Like months later, he got fired for sexual harassment on someone else. Funny how that works, right? So eventually he got what was coming around anyways. But I left and I would just meditate all the time. I lived at my mom's. It was great because my mom allowed me to I lived with her for like 4 or 5 months. And I would meditate. I'd sun gaze. I would water the plants. I became very, very just spiritual butterfly, learning as much as I could about this information. And I was super passionate about it. Now, during that time, though, my mom, super grateful to have her. She was there for me like the whole time. My dad didn't understand what was going on, so he kind of thought I went crazy. And because I also, before that, I did DMT like a year before that. And when I did DMT, it started, I'm not going to lie, that kind of planted a little bit of a seed. Because then basically with DMT, what I experienced is that DMT is called dimethyltryptamine, by the way. There's a whole documentary made about it. It's also one of the active ingredients in ayahuasca, which is something that I do. It's plant medicine. I do it normally in November each year. And I go into the subconscious and I clear stuff away. Never honestly could see myself doing this kind of stuff, but it can be very transformative. So I do it in very safe conditions in Costa Rica once a year. Anyways, so my dad found out about that, and he thought that what I did is I like fried myself. He thought I did some drug that just like permanently changed me, and I'm like, no, it's not what happened. And he was calling my friends and stuff like that. And like, we don't know what happened to Aaron, because I went from wanting to smoke weed, chill, drink, to just meditate. And a lot of people didn't understand me, so I just kind of wanted to be alone. And I developed a belief system as well that said that people didn't get me. People don't understand me. And I felt alone. I'm not going to lie. I felt alone for a while. And it's a very common thing that happens on the spiritual path as well. And for like 6 to 8 months, I didn't have a job. I was like, fuck it, I'm not having a job. I just want to meditate all day. I just want to focus on this stuff. And then eventually, what happened is I actually went to this lady that, this old, like 80-something-year-old lady that did this muscle testing thing. And she could, muscle test the subconscious mind. Our body's connected. Our body is our subconscious mind. She could muscle test different answers. And she would even muscle test some answers from spirit, right? So it's kind of a clairvoyant lady, but she was super non-woo-woo. She was super like just a lady that knew the technique and was doing it for a living. And I asked her all these questions that she was so accurate about. She's like, oh, you had like a heart wall put up when you were 22 years old or something like that. And it's from this ex-girlfriend. I was like, wow, how does she know all this stuff? Like, so accurate. But then at the very end, I asked her, like, does spirit want me to get a job? That's what I asked. She goes, yes. I'm like, what? Can you do it again? And I asked it like 3 different ways, and she kept saying yes. I'm like, huh. So eventually, I still resisted it. I even because my mom had a husband at the time, an ex-husband. So she had a husband she was with that ended up they ended up getting a divorce. Because my mom went through a spiritual awakening too. So when she went through it, he was a really nice guy. He broke out of the Mormon religion, and this was just too far for him, the whole spiritual stuff and the ascension stuff. And they ended up breaking up. And then in that house that we were at, this really nice house in the middle of nowhere in Vegas, we ended up moving out of there, and we moved into Emerald Suites, which are these, honestly, they're pretty ghetto little apartments. I do not like the vibe, but I was so resistant to having a job that I didn't even care. So I lived and slept on the floor in the living room when my mom and my sister slept in the main room at this Emerald Suites place. And what I would do is just get up every day. I was super skinny, just eating a little bit of food. And I was literally at the point to where I was like, I would rather be homeless than get a job because I was so against the system. I would rather live in Sunset Park or something in Vegas than get a job. That's where I was. I was so ungrounded. And this is just in 2012. This isn't crazy. I mean, it's almost 10 years ago, I guess, 8 years ago. But basically, I felt alone. I felt like people didn't understand me. I was very resistant to conforming or having a 9-to-5 job. And eventually, I moved back in with my dad for like a couple weeks. And the agreement was that if I do, then I have to get a job. And I applied at Barney's, New York after 6 months of not being at Nordstrom's. Pretty much the only 2 jobs I've had 3 jobs in my whole life. I worked at Hollister. After Hollister, I worked at Nordstrom's. And you could say Nordstrom Rack, and then I transferred to the full-line Nordstrom's, and I worked at Barney's, New York. And that was it. It was the only jobs I'll ever have. Now I work for myself. And I'm not trying to brag or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's interesting because after I applied at Barney's, New York, my dad took me to get a suit. He bought me a suit, and I applied at Barney's, New York, and literally got the job like that day. Like, okay, Spirit really does want me to get a job. So I got a job there. I worked there for 5 or 6 years. And I wasn't that, I worked there for 3 or 4 years. I wasn't that passionate about it. I got hired in 2013, and I left in 2017. So was that 4 years? And when I left, that's when I started going daily on YouTube, and then 6 months later, I was able to leave. So I left in August 2017 at that 9-to-5 job. And went through my own transformations at that time. But one thing I really had to let go of was the belief. One of the cons of raising your vibe is that people may not understand you. People that have known you your whole life, even family members. Some family members may not understand you. Some will. However, the key is being okay with understanding that some people may not understand you, but knowing that that's part of a process. It's part of a process of you waking up more and more. It's part of a process of you really becoming okay with you being in your own energy, but don't develop the belief system that people just don't get you. It's just that at the moment, maybe some people don't understand you, but eventually they may come around. I have a lot of friends that used to think I was crazy. And when my YouTube started to grow and they started to realize there were other people that believed this too. There's a community behind it. And more, it's easier now than it was even 4 years ago because there's so many people awake now compared to 4 years ago, especially. But a lot of people have come around now. But I developed a belief system that said that people don't get me, and I realized I was blocking people from coming into my life. One of the first things I had to do, the cons of raising your vibe is that some people may not understand you, and the trap is that you'll develop a belief system that says that people don't get me, and you'll literally block these people from coming into your life. Once I really became aware of that belief and that thought, and I let that go, and I became okay. I really became okay. I wasn't wanting more connection or more people to get me. It just started to come. If I wanted people to understand me, it almost like it was repelling them from understanding me, or they didn't want to learn because I was like trying to force them or control them to understand me. It's also part of the book Letting Go, by the way. When I let go of caring and I started to just focus on myself and loving myself and making videos and all that, that's when everything really changed. Because part of doing my passion was really something, part of raising your vibration is, are you doing what you're passionate about? And part of that may also mean letting go of something that maybe brought you comfort and safety. When I used to work at Barney's, New York, or Nordstrom's, that brought me a lot of comfort and safety. Jumping into the unknown, letting it go, was a little bit scary. So there are parts of raising your vibration that will be scary, but that's part of the process. It's a part of the process of raising your vibe. It's not always comfortable because there's pressure that's created, but I promise you it's worth it. But there's other cons too to raising your vibe. One of the other cons is there's a lot of tension that you may have to go into. Myself, I've had to learn how to really go into tension to raise my vibe. Raising my vibe means raising your level of awareness as well. When you raise your level of awareness and you become more aware of different shadow aspects of you, you start to integrate more and more. One thing that I've had to learn to become very comfortable with and to really shed is the nice guy mentality that I believe trickled on my dad's side of the family. My dad's dad was a nice guy. My dad's a nice guy. My masculine role model growing up was somebody that was very nice. Great intentions, but has a lot of shadow to it, because when you're a nice guy, guess what? You're looking for validation from other people. You're looking for love and approval from other people. You want people to approve of you. And that's why you're being nice. A nice guy and a narcissist are not as different as you might think. This will sound a little bit edgy to some people, but let's just hear me out on this. I know this will sound kind of out there, but the narcissist wants to get what they want. So what they do is they take it. And what does a narcissist want? Wants your power, wants your energy, wants to have, like, the narcissist doesn't feel powerful, and the way they feel powerful is by taking that from other people. That was my ex-stepmom. The nice guy wants to get what they want, but what they want is approval and validation. And the way that they get it is, instead of taking it, they give, and they're nice, hoping to exchange that niceness for validation and approval. So nice guys and narcissists aren't as different as you think. They just have different means for going about getting what they want. One takes it, one gives it and hopes for it to come back. But they both are rooted in wanting something. Now, of course, social conditioning-wise, the nice guy is much more cozy and fluffy, but it's still a shadow. The narcissist is still a shadow. And when we realize this, they're also both rooted in the same core wound. The core wound is, I don't feel enough and I don't feel powerful. So I'm going to give, I'm going to take. And then a lot of times they attract each other to each other, just like my dad and my ex-stepmom, the narcissist and the nice guy. So within myself, what I had to learn to do is I had to learn to let go of that nice guyness. And really what it means is I had to be okay in tension. I was given so much tension growing up from my ex-stepmom that I started to associate tension as bad. I would try to mitigate that tension. And even in my relationship with women, if there was some type of tension, I'd get uncomfortable and I want to fix. Oh, the tension's there. I got to fix it. When it comes to this, what I've learned how to do is how to be very comfortable in tension. Tension is not a bad thing. A lot of times tension is actually leads to attraction. When a masculine energy can hold tension and not be wavered, not try to fix, not be reactive, it's very different than if somebody is trying to fix. And I also realized I had a fixing savior complex that I had to really let go of. Always trying to fix. And a lot of this also has to do with the feminine masculine integration. What I learned is the feminine wants to be heard. The feminine wants to be listened to. The feminine does not want to be fixed, because then the feminine feels like the feminine is not powerful. So in my relationship with women, what I've had to learn how to do is how to listen, how to hold my own energy, to hold my own ground, to be okay in tension, to not waver. These are things that took me a year or two to learn. But many of you listening to this right now or watching it on the second YouTube channel may have noticed that my energy has changed a lot this year, especially compared to how it was a year or two ago. I was much more frantic. I still have a lot of energy. That hasn't changed. But the way I express that energy has changed quite a bit. And it will continue to change because I'm continuing to go through this process. But being comfortable in that tension is not always, it could, for some people, be a con. It's like, oh, it's uncomfortable. But guess what? It's worth it. I've had to also learn how to say no. Raising vibration, part of raising your vibe, a con of this is that you're going to have to learn to say no. Because many people that go through a spiritual awakening, I've noticed, are people pleasers, similar to the nice guy. And people pleasers will continue to get lessons in their life that reflect back them feeling siphoned and drained until they learn to say no and to draw boundaries. And when you say no and you draw boundaries, guess what? People that know they can't cross it, just like my dad, I was talking about at the beginning of this thing, they can get mad at my dad for stupid shit because he's allowed them to, and he reacts to it. He wavers. Imagine somebody saying that to like even me. I would not be reactive. And I have had people in my family and other people reach out to me before and be surprised that I don't react and I don't get like super ungrounded about crazy things going on. Doesn't mean I'm not compassionate, but I'm grounded in my sense of who I am, my values, what's okay, what's not okay. And that translates through my energy and how I show up in my life. So saying no is something that a lot of people will have to learn, and it could be considered a con with raising your vibe. But the pro side of that is that then you get your own power back. I've had to say no. I remember when I was first going full-time on YouTube, I had a lot of friends, come to this party, come hang out. So I got to get a video up for tomorrow. I had priorities. I had to say no. But by saying no to that, I said yes to my vision. And even then, after that, there were times, even just a couple months ago, I was dealing with one of the last remnants of a narcissist that was trying to peek their way into my life and trying to like nag me. And what I had to do is I literally had to be very firm and say no and be okay in that tension. And from doing that, once you learn a lesson, you don't have to continue to get that lesson reflected back. But the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, will always give you a reflection in life of the lessons that you yet to learn. But once you learn the lesson, you don't have to repeat it. Just like Dolores Cannon. You ever read any Dolores Cannon books? Hypnotherapy of thousands of people all over the world talking about things they came to learn in this life. And one of the most common thing they say is, once you learn the lesson, you don't have to take that class over again. And if there's a class of feeling guilty or of feeling victim, and you say no, and you take back your power, you don't have to keep learning that lesson. I kept getting a woman in my life reflecting back to me, trying to control me until I dealt with that, until I healed that. And then once I did, never had to deal with it again. It's funny how this all works. So there's a cozy comfort, I think, that comes along with not doing the work that some people want to move towards. But if you lean in to what's uncomfortable, there's things that are going to be triggered. There's things that are going to happen. But I promise you that it's worth it to jump into the unknown. As I've been on this spiritual path of raising my vibe, there have been way more pros than cons, way more levels of transformation. Realize many of you listening to this went through a lot of pressure so you could come out on the other end more powerful. It's just a part of the way it works. However, one of the other powerful parts of me raising my vibe, I think, was changing my identity. I used to see myself as somebody that wasn't powerful. I used to see myself as a 9-to-5 job goer. And when I changed that, that's when my life really began to change. I changed the way I saw myself. I let go of seeing myself as a 9-to-5 job goer. I took initiative and I literally started to be the version of me that was making daily videos on YouTube. And very quickly, with time, there's a mere delay in reality. My outer reality began to change. But one of the most important parts of raising your vibe is be doing something you're passionate about every single day. There's two things that'll change your vibe the most. Firm believer in this. One, learn meditation. Observe your thoughts for 5 or 10 minutes right when you wake up in the morning, 5 to 10 minutes right before you go to bed. Observe it. Don't try to control the thoughts. I start a candle flame to keep my eyes on one spot. When the eyes don't wander, the mind doesn't wander, I found. And I do that. I've done that every single day since 2012. It's changed my life more than anything else. Letting go, allowing the moment to be, allowing the thoughts to come up. It's a paradox, but when you allow the thoughts to come up, they eventually begin to subside. Second thing, do something you're passionate about every single day. For me, that's making videos every day. I woke up. It's early in the morning right now. I'm making this video because it's what I'm passionate about. Me being in that passion in my heart, and it also adds value out into the world. That's the intention. Then guess what? That good comes back to me. So if you're being the most authentic version of you and you're passionate every single day, then guess what? That is a very powerful effect on your own consciousness. That is a very powerful effect on your vibe. Now, the side effects, though, what comes with meditation and healing, guess what? There's some uncomfortable emotions that will come up. There may be some suppressed things that come up. I know when doing something like ayahuasca or plant medicine, it brings up subconscious shit. And when it brings it up, it doesn't feel so good. But guess what? After it subsides and you release it from the body, you feel free. But you can't feel free if you're suppressing it or keeping the emotion inside. So leaning into the tension, saying no, some people not understanding you, but trusting that your high vibe tribe will come in. The spiritual ego is also a negative that comes. I was kind of talking a little bit about it earlier. When people didn't understand me, I remember I'd go around and I just felt like people don't get me. I started to become very judgmental of other people. It's like, well, they're just asleep. They don't understand. And it creates this hierarchy of spiritual ego that can be very dangerous. And then you feel separate from other people because you're feeling better than them. You're putting yourself on a pedestal. And it happens a lot in the spiritual community. And the thing is knowing that we're all connected. People are waking up in their own time. But accepting that and not thinking that any of us is better than anyone else. Because when we do that, we start to create an imbalance in our reality. And when you start to get on a pedestal, many times you'll get knocked down. You guys see when Logan Paul's a vlogger. He was at the very, very top of his career, everything. Like the number one star, the number one this, the number one that, number one most YouTube views. On the pedestal, the universe kicked one of the legs out from under him when the whole Suicide Forest thing happened. Those are the kind of things that happen when we give ourselves a great amount of significance. Now he's built his way back up, which has been interesting to see. However, that's a extreme version of this, but spiritual ego-wise, I've seen it happen where I used to go to the sauna at the gym and I sit there and meditate. I almost like want people to look at me and to think I was weird because I'd get a sense of significance out of that. I was back in like 2012. And it's funny because even like a year ago I was at the gym and some guy came over and did that same fucking thing. And I was like, oh, wow, that was me a couple years ago. I could just tell it wasn't, sometimes it could be authentic, but you can tell when someone's doing it to to be noticed, you know? So, these are the cons and the pros of raising your vibe. And I feel like this could be even another video. There could be another part to this. But let me know as well. Do you guys like it when I share little stories from my life? Like that funny little story with my dad and that stuff. Do you guys like stuff like that? Or would you rather me just stick to the content? If you could let me know. If you like this episode, you could let me know by sharing it on Instagram stories. And what you could do is tag me. And I'll see it, and then I'll know. And let me know. Say, share more of these stories. If the story is funny, or the story was this, or whatever. Also, a lot of people right now, I think, are wanting to learn how to go full time doing what they love. And the thing I want to say is, it's not as hard as you think. It's much easier than you think, and it's also you don't need a huge audience to do so. When I remember when I was first going full time. I had like 50,000 subs on YouTube, and I was asking some guy that was ahead of me. He had like 70,000 subs, and he was full time. I said, "What do I have to do to go full time?" He goes, "How many?" I was like, "How many subs do I need?" He's like, "It's not a certain subs, man." He's like, "If you had 1,000 followers or less, you could go full time if you had the right strategy and you knew how to get like a couple coaching clients." So there is something. I know a lot of people listening to this may be healers, life coaches, artists, musicians, whatever you do for a living. I believe that a lot of it can be done. You can start an online business and you can monetize it. And there is a training that my buddy Victor and I have. If you go to fulltimepurpose.com, check that out. We'll show you step by step how we did it, how we went full time, and how it's much easier than you think. You don't need a lot of YouTube subs. You don't need to even be on YouTube. You don't even need to be on camera. It's about knowing a strategy towards adding value into the world. So if you're someone that's heart-based that wants to add value in the world, you're not quite sure how, go to fulltimepurpose.com. We'll show you a whole training on how we did it, how you can do it too. It's easier than you think. And we really want to help a lot of people. We've had a lot of people go and ditch their 9-to-5 job and do what they love full-time. So this is something that we'd love to help you do too. And if you go there, you can check that out and go from there. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for being here. And as always, I'm going to talk to you guys in the next episode. Peace, much love, and namaste.